Many professional environments operate on a specific assumption that communicative success scales predictably with definitional effort. We act as though we can achieve total clarity simply by adding more words. Yet the record of our institutions shatters this premise. Law, politics, and science routinely fracture over definitions, despite dedicating massive resources to achieving precision. This recurring failure is the foundation of the language insufficiency hypothesis. This hypothesis identifies linguistic ambiguity as an inescapable structural feature of natural language. To study these failures, we use the effectiveness complexity gradient, a diagnostic tool designed to map the actual relationship between what we say and what we mean. Managing the limits of language requires us to map exactly where the connection between word and world begins to fail. Our focus here is narrow: English language institutional discourse. We are looking at the propositional exchanges that drive law, politics, and science. This excludes other symbolic systems, like mathematics, music, or the visual arts. Those systems are set aside because they do not carry the same transactional burden of precise, propositional truth expected of natural language. Only natural language promises this level of utility, which leaves it uniquely vulnerable to structural failure when the complexity of the subject increases. This framework applies strictly to the arena where humans demand the highest degree of precision, yet predictably encounter the limits of expression. We begin with two axes. The horizontal axis measures conceptual complexity, while the vertical axis tracks language effectiveness. At the lowest level of complexity, we find invariants. Invariants are concrete reference with pragmatic stability. We generally agree on what constitutes a chair, a dog, or the boiling point of water. The probability of a communicative misfire here is low, roughly 5 to 10%, and errors are typically trivial matters of fact or usage. These terms provide a baseline of reliability, but they are the exception. Their stability creates the false impression that all language works this way. Moving rightward into higher complexity, effectiveness begins to fracture. We enter the zone of contestables. These are the pillars of institutional life, concepts like justice, freedom, and fairness. These terms carry normative weight. They are instruments used to argue how the world ought to be, which makes them permanent sites of friction. In this zone, the misfire probability climbs to 40 or 50%. Institutions attempt to stabilize these terms through legal rulings or specific policies, but these arrangements are unstable. They persist only through pragmatic compromise or institutional authority, until the next dispute reopens the fissure. Contestables are linguistic battlegrounds, inherently structured for permanent dispute. Further right on the complexity axis, we find the fluids. Fluids are amphibious terms like intelligence, consciousness, or equity, words that slip across different disciplines without ever finding a fixed home. While contestables are a battle over a shared stake, fluids often dissolve the stakes entirely. Because the word's meaning drifts across operational frames, speakers may not realize they are talking past each other until the misunderstanding is total. In this region, the misfire risk reaches 60 to 70%. In the fluid zone, adding more definitions often multiplies the confusion. Meanings overlap across disciplines without ever converging on a single point of clarity. At the extreme right edge of the gradient lie the ineffables. Here, linguistic effectiveness reaches zero. This zone encompasses private sensations and raw qualia, the interior hush of awe or the specific texture of pain. At this level of complexity, any attempt at description results in vague metaphor or silence. The words simply cannot capture the substance of the experience. The probability of misfire here is 100%. The ineffables represent a hard horizon. They demonstrate that the gap between complex experience and linguistic expression is structurally unbridgeable. By connecting these points, we trace the actual trajectory of language failure. This solid black curve shows how rapidly effectiveness decays as complexity increases. However, we operate instead on this dotted line, the presumed effectiveness, acting as though our clarity remains near total. The distance between this presumed clarity and our actual performance is the presumption gap. When communication breaks down, we try narrowing this gap with more words. But this dashed curve, the effectiveness horizon, represents the structural limit. The shaded band shows the maximum improvement extra words provide. As complexity rises, it compresses to zero. Our presumption of clarity and our search for precision both end at this exact horizon of failure. In the far right corner of the model, every curve converges at zero. Our actual effectiveness, our potential for improvement, and our presumptions all vanish. At this degree of complexity, language is structurally incapable of delivering consensus. When a definitive choice is required, but the language remains fractured, the mechanism of decision-making shifts. Institutions compensate for linguistic failure with authority and ritual. A legal ruling or a policy mandate provides the finality that the words themselves cannot. Authority fills the space where vocabulary collapsed. The effectiveness complexity gradient functions as a tool for stripping away the illusion of perfect clarity. It allows us to see when we are truly communicating and when we are merely defaulting to power.